Sharing today from boundaries from a recovery meeting. So we have to set them affirmatively. It's not about mind reading, and we can't save anyone else. We've got to be self-sufficient. These are what boundaries are built on. Arising purposelessly, like that's what happens if we don't choose them. So too much sharing of my life to just acquaintances, or recognizing, and also recognizing I can't mind read. Too much sharing of my life to other acquaintances ends up with us condemning or condoning others. Like, it's not right. It's not about right. It's about just being ourselves. If we're ourselves, we're not looking for someone to approve or to see us. And recognizing also we can't mind read the same way others can't. And whether it's in thought, speech, and action, X's are X's. And we can give ourselves closure. When someone presses our buttons, it's still our buttons. We can't do for others what we can't do for ourselves. So if there's very much criticizing and complaining, we gotta avoid it. And spirituality and science don't have much. In other words, we can't have the answers for others. We have to do this for ourselves. There's like an inner science and inner spirituality, and we can't think of what everyone else, let's say in a meeting or in a group, thinks of us, because community is the group where the boundaries don't exclude us and make me an outsider. We have to have self-discipline instead of being irresponsibly liberal. And when we identify our own feelings and the nuances in them and not sponging kind of others up or going by their interpretations, we start to pay attention to what cues right now are from others rather than the models from the past, because we arrive into the state of being where being assertive is not necessarily being aggressive. We don't have to be aggressive. It's mouth, eye movement, necks, and like when we feel someone's violating our personal space or taking advantage of us, we might be inconveniencing ourselves for their company, for their convenience, and we start to not waste our time as much. And with some people, we can just stick to the basics and the simple necessities and not go in deep. We can't really go further. But we also have to remember, every single person, each of us, we have our own internal personal guidance system. And I took a class with the Golden Rosycross. I didn't find that it melds very well with it goes very well with my Jewish background, but there's a lot of good points in it that I'll share in in a way that is not with any religious connotation, but rather the truth, the deeper truth. So astral is stars, luminous, emotions, energy. There's a collective higher that nourishes us. When we're egocentric, it's like if one side is strengthened as good, the other side becomes bad. We become entangled in our own thought creation with opposites, the divided shadow. Like we know from Adam and Eve, eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil is knowing opposites. So this pollutes. It's like they call it a serpent fire system in the spine with its products, its atmosphere. It's causes byproducts because it's not in oneness. It has separation. So in the gap between, desires are like a magnet. Only the astral forces we have an affinity for can come, drawn by divine essence within us, and our focus, serving the divine, strengthening and improving ourselves. Yearning is like what bears this potential for liberative path. A gift is the desire itself is the gift, because only the heart's desire that's newly radiating, nowly radiating, can draw in the astral forces. When we wake that divine spark, it has a profound impact. It's to the vibration and the new. They use the word gnostic, but it's about knowledge. Element that's released even into the blood. They say it affects our hormones, in that way. The thymus and the cerebral blood, it flows and transports to the brain. We have new thoughts. So the more the seeker opens to the new light, the new force, the more awakening, and they call it kundalini, but it's the rising energy of the heart, like a vortex of pure light energy, where the ego needs to step back from the new growing soil. It voluntarily does. It's like a self-surrender, fundamental change in the attitude of life. And it's an inner reversal. Our consciousness shifts, and we kind of say to the divine, "Thy will be done." Yeah, I want to serve. And the ego gives its place, third eye, inside. We have two eyes we see with, but there's this, we call it the third eye, the inner eye, behind the frontal bone. Sort of, the frontal lobe is all about planning and looking, and rather it takes a step back and lets there be a bigger picture, in other words. So there's this Gnostic element, this element of knowing, and the new divine astral force, this Gnostic light, we can almost imagine it goes deeper into us, from this bigger picture. It's what was called the pituitary gland. Some people call it the crown chakra. It rises up, and then we're sort of from this place of not being affected, from this place of not getting too attached. A personality of the human being becomes a soul human being, and it's divine. Now, this double-stranded twisting, we think of the nervous system, positive, negative, nature order of opposites that forgot unity could be like a serpent. Like that was the snake. The snake said, there's this and this, but not finding the oneness. So right side divine stream comes in and reaches the sacral plexus root. They call this like I was going to say crotch, but like the pelvis area. The root area, like the bottom of the spine. And there's like this new serpent battles the old serpent. This is temptation in the desert. After victory, the Gnostic stream meets and ascends the chakras again, and they start rotating in a new direction. So it's like kind of comes down, but then there's this rising, and then they interact, like it pulls itself up. So sometimes it's like we go deep down into our deep desires, into our body, but then we rise up into the soul. Like we harness that energy and make it available for use for a divine purpose. And after this victory, there's something called the Kudesis, or the triunity, like the spirit, soul, and the body. In Hebrew, in Chassidus, we call this the Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama. And they call it Pentecostal fire of Holy Spirit that can manifest, but we call it in Hebrew the Ruach HaKodesh, very simply the divine spirit, the Holy Spirit. And Kundalini, or the feminine Shakti energy, we call this the Shechina, and the Chayas, like the Shechina dwelling with us. It's located, they say, at the root, and can rise up leading to liberation. Or like these chakras are like these wheels. In Hebrew, we have a different system of them, and we call them sphirot, which is attributes, and they're like vessels for the energies. But they're transformers, and this astral force that is being mentioned is star energy, this like overstar energy. Reacting, karmic influence means, every action or choice has an equal or greater reaction. And this is can move them. It shows us like everything in motion, and energy is being it's like a domino effect even. And so this leads us, like when we let the spirit in, and then we could in Hebrew and Kabbalah we call it like our desire, right? We talked about desire. It's like the feminine waters, and then the masculine waters come in, and then they merge together, and then there's a oneness, and there's a bigger picture at that point, which is like the heart of the moment, or people have their blood bubbling. It's like the souls don't react or act on. They're in peace, love, and light. It's like the part of us that already died, is not afraid of death, the part of us that was never born yet, who doesn't have any attachment to how things should go. And the souls don't take sides or force things. There's a silent, ever-present, unified, never dividing, versus the density, which is physical. It could be etheric, it could be astral, mental. There's different levels of it. And when we live in these planes with our bodies, it's kind of like to be a Gnostic or Gnostic is to be someone who has an internal world versus the multiplicity of the external world. Remember, there's 500 billion galaxies, but you access that. Like we learned that there's an inner and an outer and a middle for each of the vessels, like I mentioned, the Hebrew in the Kabbalah, for each of the vessels of the 10 sphirot. And then on top of that, there's 4 worlds, and there's 10 of them. So it's 10 times 3, so that's 300, and then 4 worlds, so each one, so that's 300, so it's really 1,200. Isn't that incredible? Or more if you start to say that each one, as the world goes into itself, there's another whole set of this, like for each one of them. It's really mind-boggling. So there's so many galaxies within. If we keep on exploring the inner, outer, and middle attributes inside of ourselves, each one has hundreds, like in the planes, in the densities that's coming through us. They're all present at the same time. It's like moving in through all different realities almost, but not, we shouldn't even call it realities, worlds. So the direct experience of reality transcends any thought, language. Mysticism is based on direct experience. It won't be able to be talked about perfectly. So the key is awakening is to always open the heart with yearning for something more, for the truth, for the realness beyond what is able to be seen or felt. And this requires self-nullification. And by the way, our protection against the lower frequencies is focusing on the resonant attention on higher frequencies, which is a radiating, like a higher frequency is more powerful. So the higher power, God, or whoever you've been comfortable calling your creator, the one that gives you your abilities, the one that programmed your body, the one that stores your memories, which you can't remember, and then holds the wisdom for you for when you need it, your biggest cheerleader, right? Your creator, the one that is training you, your trainer, your coach, so whatever. The self-nullification is the personality has to step back, not create more ties, and emotions or opinions of good and bad. It requires the soul, because the soul won't scream over the personality, but it could be screaming, but we can't even hear it because the personality could be so loud. So other beings can provide impersonal assistance, but we can't expect them to do our work. You might call it like avatars, almost like angels or other versions of ourselves, future selves, or like spirit guides, whatever it is. They give us doctrines when they come here, like teachers. We call them righteous tzaddikim. They're very in line. They're like from another world, but they meet us in our world. Then we unfortunately could turn it into a religion, which is not really like what they're even there for. They're meant to guide us into all the infinity and the dwelling of the Holy Spirit within. so that we become a dwelling place for the Creator, for God. Have a beautiful Shabbos, this special Shabbos called Shabbos Shuvah. It's time to return and recover to the true self, to exactly what this has been exploring. Thank you. Be well. Bye.